in the microbiology series. We learned about plants in the botany series, mushrooms in the mycology series, and animals in the zoology series. We've begun to learn about the Earth itself in the geology series. But what if we wish to consider all of these things at once? Then we would be studying ecology. Ecology is a science that describes how the organisms that populate this planet interact with each other and their physical environments. These environments vary depending on where we are, from the oceans to the forests, and from the deserts to the mountains. The scientists who study these relationships between organisms and their environments are called ecologists, and ecology itself is considered a branch of biology. This field is incredibly broad in scale, as ecologists can choose to study the individual organism itself, populations or communities of organisms, large ecosystems, or even the entire biosphere as a whole, which is a word that refers to the regions of the planet occupied by living organisms. They can specialize even further, focusing on genetics, plant and animal physiology, biodiversity, or conservation. As we are beginning to understand, the Earth can be broken down into distinct spheres, such as the atmosphere, lithosphere, cryosphere, and biosphere. We define the atmosphere as an envelope of gases surrounding the planet, making it habitable for life. The lithosphere is the rigid outer part of the Earth consisting of the crust and upper mantle. Over geologic timescales, the lithosphere determines how much land is available for living organisms to inhabit and where that land is located geographically. The cryosphere is the part of Earth's surface characterized by frozen water. Its expanse changes over time, and this is an important factor in maintaining a habitable climate. And then the biosphere we described a moment ago. These spheres are dynamic and can influence one another, so the better we understand interactions within individual spheres, the more equipped we are to understand how they all work together as an entire system. But let's zoom back in for a moment. Within any given physical environment, ecologists seek to study both the types of organisms present and their abundance. By monitoring these factors over time, ecologists can track the general trends and well-being of the ecosystem. For example, as climate changes, the numbers and types of organisms may change too, in order to adapt to changing conditions. This might result in a positive or negative change depending on the species, and as a whole, the ecosystem could be accordingly fortified or placed in jeopardy. The more we know and understand about interactions between organisms and their environments, the better we will be able to address any consequences that arise. Ecology does not encompass only the outdoors, as many might assume. What about mold in your kitchen or shower? Or, if you're an athlete, the dreaded athlete's foot fungus that you can pick up in a locker room. These are also examples of ecology in action. Factors that can affect the distribution of organisms can be biotic or abiotic in nature. Biotic refers to the living factors, which can include animals, plants, bacteria, and fungi, like the athlete's foot fungus. The fungus is living, but how did it grow in the first place? Water. Availability of water is abiotic, or a non-living factor. These are physical or chemical in nature, and they also impact an ecosystem. A few other examples include air, soil, and sunlight. Earlier we mentioned the range in scale of phenomena that ecologists can study. Later we will examine this more thoroughly, but let's briefly summarize the tiers now so that you know what to expect moving forward. Think of an individual tree, let's say a pine tree. For those ecologists who are detail-oriented and like studying the small scale, they might be more inclined to study ecology at the organism level. They're interested in details like how this pine tree adapts and how natural selection played a role in the evolution of beneficial features for survival. Organism ecologists study not only the physiological traits of an organism, or those traits that relate to normal functions of living organisms and their parts, but can also focus on organism behaviors. Next on our scale is populations, or groups of organisms of the same species that live in the same area at the same time. So all of the pine trees living in a specific area make up a population. Population ecologists are interested not only in the size of the population, or the number of pine trees, but also the densities and structures of these populations, and how they change with time. How many trees are adults? How many are juveniles or seedlings? Next comes communities. What do we mean by this term in the ecological sense? A biological community is defined as all the populations of different species that live in a given area. So now we're looking beyond the pine trees. What other tree species are there? And what other organisms call this area home? Which other plants? Which animals? Which bacteria? Community ecologists are interested in studying the interactions between populations of species and then how those interactions shape the entire community. Let's zoom out again. What about an ecosystem? Looking at the bigger picture, this encompasses all of the organisms in an area or the community, as well as all of the abiotic factors that influence it. Ecologists that study this scale are interested in understanding the flow of energy in the system and the recycling of nutrients that sustains it. Looking beyond the trees and the critters that call the trees home, we're focused on the entire forest ecosystem here and the influence of abiotic factors like the soil, sunlight, and moisture. Finally, zooming out one last time, we get to the biosphere. The biosphere is Earth, but viewed as an ecological system. Scientists studying this scale are interested in global perspectives, global patterns in climate and species distribution, how ecosystems interact, and how climate change is having a real and measurable impact on the biosphere. In going over this scale, we've introduced the majority of the phenomena we will be examining in this series. Given that we will be focusing on ecology, there will be many instances in which we will be taking certain prerequisite knowledge for granted. If you are looking for more information on individual organisms, my playlists on botany, mycology, zoology, and microbiology will be of great help. Additionally, certain aspects of basic biology and geology will be assumed. But if all of that information is squared away, this series will add considerable depth and scope to your understanding of life on this planet and how it interacts with its surroundings, which is rich with complexities far beyond imagination. So if you're ready, let's learn some ecology.